Hello guys, welcome to gettingstarted.tv. Yes, I'm kind of giving this a name. Ever since I posted the first video up, inside the first video, I did that at a local PHP meetup that we had here in town. And ever since I posted it up online, I didn't expect it to get that many views. The amount of views that it got, and the amount of comments, and all your feedback has really been helpful to me. So I decided to create a website. That website's gettingstarted.tv. I just got it started, no pun intended. So I'm going to be adding some other, features to it as we move along, and probably some even some online courses. It's still kind of an idea in the movement. So Getting Started TV, and right now I'm giving a free video. Away whenever you sign up for this. So the video that you get is you power your front end workflow. So I'm showing you how to kind of use your the front end workflow being Bower, Sass, and Bootstrap. And one of the things that I've kind of learned over the past is how to override Bootstrap, because it's always had a this kind of default look to it. And you can very easily override it with using the right tools. Bower, again, that's for front-end assets, and you can download that. And then with Bower, you would download Sass and Bootstrap, and then you would be able to override Bootstrap with Sass variables with very little effort. So here in this video, I show you how to do that. So here is kind of just the start of gettingstarted.tv. And all the YouTube videos too, I'm probably going to have a tab on here that I'll eventually post where I'm going to have all the YouTube videos and the channel on here. But thank you again, guys, for visiting the video and for the nice comments that y'all guys have been leaving. Also, give me some feedback. When you get this video, let me know if I'm missing something. So I know in some of the comments that that some of you guys left on the last YouTube video, you said, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" That's very helpful to me. So that way, maybe I can redo that video if I would need to. But anyways, let's talk about why you're here. The reason you're here is because the video is titled "Getting Started with Laravel Homestead." So Laravel Homestead is a virtual machine that Laravel gives you, so that way it's easy to develop Laravel applications on Homestead. So for those of y'all who don't know, virtual machine, it's just a fake. I just say it's a fake box or fake computer on or inside your computer. So why would you want to use a virtual machine to develop applications? There's several reasons why you would want to. One, maybe you're in a team environment and you want to make sure that everybody has the same install. Two, in this case, Laravel says, hey, we know everything that we need for our application, and we have it installed in a virtual machine in a nice little box for you. So that way you don't have to worry about all the dependencies that you would need to install for a Laravel application. Three, for some reason, something goes wrong, something goes corrupt. Hey, that's not your computer that actually got corrupt. It would be that virtual machine that got corrupt, and then you could just easily re-provision that, not losing much. MySQL would probably be the only thing that you would, database that you would lose. So you would make sure that you always back up your local database. And when I say database, I'll show you the tool that I use for MySQL. And you could easily just spin it back up again. So there's a lot of pluses to use a virtual machine. Laravel Homestead, they give you kind of a step-by-step process to go through here. There's some stuff that as I went through here, it was kind of like hard to understand even for me. And it took me a little bit to kind of spin this up and get around to it, and get an actual Laravel Homestead virtual machine set up. So I'm going to walk you through that process. First, let's talk about some prerequisites. Here we got included software, but software you must have installing. Here it is, first steps. So I added to these first steps to kind of make it easier. They don't mention it here, but I've been running my own virtual machine. It's not Homestead, using Vagrant and Ansible that I've kind of managed or created on my own, and now I just kind of use it to manage my local development environment. And also I use it to manage my production environment. So that was the stuff that I did there was able to help me fill in the gaps here. So hopefully this will be easy for you to install. So I added to these prerequisites, and I'm gonna put them in the show notes below. Um, and this is kind of what I'm thinking you should need. You know, I refer to the Sublime command, um, and this is real cool if you don't have it. It depends what version of Sublime you have. So right here, you might have to change this to Sublime Text 3 if you're using 3. I know mine says 3. Um, but all we're doing is creating a link and putting it in our user bin that when we type in Subl at the command line, it's going to open up Sublime. So the cool thing is, and you've probably seen it before, you do Subl and then I hit enter and Sublime opens up. You could do Subl and then some file .text and then I actually open up a file called text that I can start editing in Sublime. So it's a very cool command. So make sure that you have this. It's going to be in the notes, and then you could do some searching for adding the Sublime command to your box. But this has been the easiest one that I've used time and time again. And again, remember the version of text Sublime Text matters. Make sure you have Composer. So if you watched my last video, getting started with Laravel 5.1, and yes, now Laravel is in 5.2. What are the differences? I think you probably have to Google that. There are some little minute differences, not enough for me to switch over, but there is some cool stuff in 5.2. However, so getting started in Laravel 5.1, if you already watched that video, if not, then maybe I'll link to it so that way you can go over to it. But if you haven't, make sure you have Composer installed on your computer. It'd be real easy to check. You can probably type in composer-v, and there you see. I have Composer, so there's no need for me to install it. If you don't, then follow these 2 steps right here, curl ss, and then according to their documentation, you know, on their website, that's what you would do. Pipe it through PHP, and then you're going to move it to your user local bin folder. Then the other tool I'm going to have you install is called SQL Pro. So SQL Pro is another tool that I use, and I use it to kind of manage my databases and stuff, my local databases. Not only that, but I can actually also connect to my remote databases. So any database that I have, like on a production server, I'm able to get to. Kind of dangerous, but it does kind of help me whenever I'm managing database stuff. So here we have generating SSH keys. With your Vagrant box, you are going to do a SSH login. So if you don't know what SSH is, you know, do a quick search for that. But SSH is pretty much just a secure shell login. So it's like logging in to another machine, but through the terminal. And really all you have is terminal commands at your disposal. Well, because this is a fake machine on your computer, you need to be able to log into it somehow, and you're going to log into it using SSH, and Vagrant gives us some nice tools to do that with. However, you have to be sure that you have what's called an SSH key, and this is what authenticates you on that device. You're going to have 2 sets of keys. One's going to be a public, which it references, and then it matches it up to the private key. So it's kind of like a login username password type thing, but it does it automatically. So run through these steps that GitHub has. This is the best instructions on how to kind of get your SSH keys set up. Now, if you already have a GitHub account and you're already pushing to it, that means you should already have it. So this first step right here is check to see if you have it. You don't want to run this other command if you already have an SSH key installed, because it's going to override it. And if you have that SSH key synced up to any online repositories like GitHub or Bitbucket, then you just overrode it, and it's no longer going to work for that account. So be sure to check that before. All right. The last thing we're going to install, and I should have put it on here, Homebrew. Homebrew. That's not it. Homebrew. So Homebrew is just a package manager. So the same way that your app store is a package manager for all the software that's on your computer, this is a package manager for quite a bit of things that we can install on your computer, programs. Things like here in Laravel Homestead it says, hey, you're going to need Virtualbox and you're also going to need Vagrant. We can install those on the command line with Homebrew. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So make sure that you have, nope, wrong one, Homebrew installed. This is how you install it. You're going to run this, put that at the command line, right there. I'm probably going to switch over to, there we go. So that's where you would install it. Okay, I'm not going to install mine because I already have it installed. I don't want to mess anything up. So we'll install a few dependencies before we get started. Make sure that all those prerequisites you have, and guys, remember, here in the documentations it says, hey, make sure you have Virtualbox and make sure you have Vagrant. But all these other things that I've mentioned are kind of things that will help you get kind of moving along faster with this. And it would take a lot of the guessing out for guessing on what you need out of it for you. So here we're going to brew, install, cask, room, cask, brew, cask. So cask is another software that Brew helps us install, and all it gives us is the ability to install desktop applications with Brew. So it's a nice little library. So you would put that command in. I'm not going to do it for now because I already have it installed. Oh, so if you want to make sure you have Brew installed, make sure you could just type in Brew, and if you get to the command line like this, or brew-h, if you get that, then you have it. If you get command not found, then you don't have it just yet. So after that brew-cask command, now you can do brew-cask, and now we can install desktop applications, one of them being Vagrant. Brew-cask install Vagrant. You would hit enter and install Vagrant. The next one you're going to do is brew-cask install Virtualbox. And this would install Virtualbox, the Virtualbox machine. I already have that installed as well. So next thing we're going to do, and this is running down, after all that stuff, that's the missing piece right here. So all that stuff is important. If you need to rewind the video, rewind it and go back and kind of pause it, feel free to do so. So then I'm going to do just CD tilde. I do Control L, that's how I clear that. And then I'm going to do Vagrant box add Laravel / Homestead. Now mind you, once I hit enter, and I've done this a couple times before, once I hit enter, it's going to take quite a bit to download. So it's asking me, which one are you going to use? Are you going to use VMware Desktop? Now I don't know much about VMware Desktop, so if that's kind of what you're using, then you could kind of go down that path and maybe go alongside with this video and try and see if you could figure it out. But what I'm going to use is Virtualbox because I've been using it forever. So it says it's already come. Oh no, it jumped from 100% down to 0. So this is going to take me some time to download. At this time, if you're waiting for it to download, head over to gettingstarted.tv. It's me. And I'm going to pause this video so that way I can wait till this thing's downloaded, and then we'll continue as soon as it's done. Alright guys, so mine downloaded, it probably took about maybe 5-10 minutes for mine. So it just depends on your internet provider and how fast your internet is. If it went super fast and faster than mine, then I'm kind of jealous. But let's get back to installing this bad boy. So now we're about this step right here where we're going to install the repo. So just cd tilde or squiggly, however you would call that. And then copy this right here, git clone at github.com/Laravel Homestead.git. And then we're going to move it to a directory called Homestead, which is going to be in your home directory. So that's going to clone, and that's faster than the box downloaded. One thing I want to explain while we do this is this right here. So there's going to be 3 directories that you're going to be kind of interacting with to, one, manage or SSH into your Vagrant box. 2, create domains. That's going to be a second directory. And actually it's directory, but it's a YAML file. And then 3, where you're actually going to put your code files. So the way their project is set up, the way they have it on their instructions is, this is Homestead right here. The GitHub the URL that we just downloaded or that we just pasted in our terminal, and this is going to be where you're going to kind of interact with the let's call it interact with virtual machine. And then they're going to have you create another directory, and let's go ahead and put the paths on these. So that means that's your home directory called code, and this is going to be where your project files and actual Laravel installs are going to be. And that one's going to be at home. And then you're going to have one other one that you're going to interact with, and that's going to be .homestead. And remember the dot, that's just going to hide it from you know, from your actual finder and hide it from the system. Homestead.yaml file. So, you know, it's 3 things that you're going to kind of be interacting with. Homestead, that's where you're going to do like a Vagrant SSH. You're going to power on the virtual machine or power it off. Or maybe let's say you come here, and this is going to be where we're going to create the, you know, this is going to map the folder, map folders, and then create new domains. And these are going to be local domains. You know, it's not going to be an actual .com. I mean, I guess you could do it and fake it out, but nobody else would be able to see it. But you know, it'd be something like .dev, or in this case, like the way that they have in their examples, it's going to be like .app, app. So keep in mind that you're going to be interacting with 3 different spots. This one took me a while to figure out because the way that I have mine all in one folder, so it's kind of easy to find everything. But this one right here, you can title this anything you want. If you want to call it sites, if you want to call it Laravel, if you want to call it projects. So I'll show you how to kind of change this one right here. But their example shows to use code. This right here is going to be the actual virtual machine where you turn it on, turn it off, and SSH into it. This right here, let's just say we're going to be adding new domains or new applications. We would add them here, and then we would go back to the machine and re-provision it so that way it picks up that change. So I wanted to explain that because that took me a while to kind of grasp when I was messing with this. So this GitHub repo, download it. Now we can go to CD into the Homestead directory, and you're going to do the bash command. They installed a shell command that's going to actually move this over and create the YAML directory. It's going to create this part right here for you. So we've already created this one by git cloning. This one right here is going to create for you when we run this command called init.sh. Hit enter. It says it's initialized. What that did is that created this directory right here. So let's go ahead and create this directory right here, so that way we can kind of get it out of the way already. I'm just going to say make directory tilde. I'm going to call mine code, but you can call yours projects. You can call yours sites, clients, or whatever you would want to. I'm just going to keep to their documentation and put code, but it really doesn't matter what you call this one. So I'll go ahead and make that directory. So that way we get that out of the way. Next thing I'm going to do, and this is where our Sublime command comes in. Remember that subl command? This is where it comes into place. All you type in is subl, and hopefully yours got installed. So if you didn't, pause the video, go back to the beginning, or maybe look in the show notes on how you can install that. So Sublime tilde dot homestead and homestead YAML. And that should do it. Hit enter. Got this all big. So this right here is just pretty much I like to call these YAML files kind of like recipes or instructions that tell the system what to do. So here the system reads this. This is going to be our local virtual machine, our virtual fake machine's IP address. So you know that every system has an IP address. We're going to route to it with this 192.168.10.10. And it's okay that yours is the same as everybody else's. This is just a local IP address. This is the memory that we're putting out for this fake machine. It's going to be 2 gigs, so if you want to fix that, you know, you could adjust it there. This is provider Virtualbox. Right here, one of the prereqs that I asked you to do was the SSH keys. So this is already kind of filled out for you, and if you did that, then this is perfect. One thing I want you to note, that's something that I don't do on the SSH keys. I don't enter a passphrase. So that's something that kind of I just don't do, because then I always have to enter that passphrase whenever I'm doing stuff. But if you'd like to do that and you're fine with that, then that's fine. So this right here would be kind of something that we're going to interact with now, and this right here quite a bit. Going to leave this alone. That looks fine. But one of the things is we have a virtual machine. It's a fake machine. When we log into it, it has this file path of where all the code's going to go. Now, we have the ability with Vagrant to link this to a local folder on our Mac computer. So it's like you have this fake virtual machine that has a folder that's tied to your local Mac. So that way, any changes you do here will reflect inside of here. Any changes you do here will reflect inside of the local one, inside of your Mac. So this right here, this is Mac. This right here is your virtual machine, VM. So this right here would be actually if you wanted to change it. So remember whenever we did make directory right here, make directory, and I called mine code, maybe you did your projects. Then you would just change that to what that is. Here you could leave this one alone, or you can make it match. You know, I probably, you know, would make it match. So if you did code, then leave it as code. If you named it projects, then maybe change both of them to projects. So that way everything's just consistent. I don't think it would matter, but you know, I think it's better if you make it consistent. So mine's code. So this is my Mac. This is inside my virtual machine. When I log in, this is going to be the path to that same folder. The cool thing about this again is that I can edit all the code that I want from here inside Sublime. And when I'm doing so, the server is picking it up. So it's kind of like a live relationship. It's pretty neat. The other thing to take note is sites. So here I'm saying map homestead.app to, and this is inside the virtual machine, to /home vagrant code, a folder called Laravel, and then public inside of that. I do something different here. I like my folder to be the same name as my application, and then go to public. So that's the change that I make. It just makes more sense to me, because Laravel is very generic. What if I had 2 applications? I can't call the second one Laravel 2. I mean, I guess I could, but that just kind of gets it gets too confusing. I'd rather name it according to my application. One thing too that I failed to mention, I add this configuration here, NFS, because I noticed without it things run kind of slow. And this is just the file. This is just the file type, not the file type, the file system type that I wanted to connect between this folder and this folder. And NFS seems to work a lot quicker for me. Cool. So now that I got all those installed, I save this directory. Remember, these are my 3 different things. So now I need to kind of turn the machine on. I need to make sure it's up and running. So that means I would have to go to this directory, Homestead. I'm a CD. It looks like I was still in that folder. I'm a PWD. Yep, I'm where I need to be. So here's the moment of truth. Hopefully I don't get an error this time. Vagrant Up is the command. So Vagrant Up is as if you're using your finger to turn the power key on for the computer. And this might take a bit. It's not going to take it's not going to take as long as downloading the actual box, but it does take it does take a bit to kind of go through the whole install. So it seems to be running faster here. We can do another change while that's running. And just because I don't like to wait around, I'm impatient that you know that way. And it's running pretty fast there, so maybe I will wait. I guess it heard me and figured it had to hurry up. But while it's still doing that, I'm going to do Command T. I'll keep checking this. Okay. It may ask for a password too. The reason it asks for a password, it's your local computer password, is because of that NFS. I'm saying, hey, I want to connect this to a local directory on my computer, and your computer's wigging out saying, someone wants access to this. Do you want to accept this? So go ahead and do that. Now our subl command, we're going to do it again, /. So all I did, open a new tab, Command T, Vagrant Up still running over here. subl /etc /host. Hit enter. And so this is your host file. If you've never messed with this before, your host file is on your local Mac. We can trick out the browser that if I type in a domain, I want you to go to this IP address. So we have a local domain, remember, to our virtual machine. Remember that it's 192.168.10.10. And then what I want to do is I want to say when I type in homestead.app for my application, remember .app is not anything specific. It could very well be .dev. It could be .test, .local. However you would want to, you just name that after whatever you would want. I actually use all of mine as .dev. So .app, we're going to go ahead and follow alongside with the documentation. So it's saying that when I hit this URL, go to this IP address. And then the server says, hey, I have a request for this URL. Where do you want me to map it to? And then it'll map it to the actual application directory. And yes, it does need the sudo password for that to work. Let's go check on our install here. Yep, it's asking me for the password, and that's for that file connection between the virtual machine and your local computer. So the rest of that's installing. Got a little warning here, but I think I've had this warning before, and I was fine. I never messed with it anymore. So everything's installed. Our virtual machine's online. I mean, it is operational, and we're going to be interacting with it. So the way that you interact with it is Vagrant SSH, and that's a Vagrant command. And now I'm within my Vagrant directory. I could do LL to list all my items. Notice this code directory, right? If I cd into code LL, there's nothing in it. Now remember, I'm in my virtual machine, and inside this virtual machine, it installed Ubuntu Linux 14.04. So I'm running a Linux virtual machine inside of this Homestead box. If you want to see it, you command spacebar, type in Virtualbox. You can see Homestead, and then I've got several others running. But Homestead, you can see that it's running. I like to show people this because to show you how the code is just interacting with it. I'm going to exit, that's how you get out of the machine. And I'm a Vagrant halt, that's how you stop the machine. Notice right here, you got some code running over here. And now it's powered off. If I do Vagrant up, it's going to power it back on. And now you can see it's running and it's coming on over here. Taking a bit. And this is all within the Homestead directory. Doop, 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 doop. Okay, so a few other commands. Vagrant Status, that just tells me what's the status of my machine. So we normally don't have this Virtualbox open. I just wanted to show you, oh crap, I just wanted to show you that so that way you can see it. And I accidentally quit out of my terminal here. You know what's the most frustrating thing? Is that Command W and Command Q are very close to each other. And this sucks whenever you're in a browser. And if you're like me, I have 100 tabs open at once, and yeah, I'm kind of exaggerating there, but I mean to do Command W at one point, and I just meant to close a tab, and I do Command Q, and yeah, I could do the Chrome reopen all, but it's just a pain in the butt. They really thought that one out. So Vagrant Status was the one that I was going to show you. Vagrant Status, that just tells me is your machine on or not. And then, you know, at the end of the day, you could do a Vagrant Suspend, just like that. And what that does is just puts the virtual machine to sleep. And notice that I'm doing these all within the Homestead directory. If I was out of this directory and I typed in Vagrant Up, it's going to tell me that there's no target machine. So remember, you have to be within that Homestead directory or inside a a Vagrant folder for it to run that, and it's looking for this Vagrant file. And whenever you want to, you can actually take a look at that, and it's a Ruby code for that Vagrant file. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to SSH into our box here. Okay, and we're going to CD into code because that's what we have. And remember that now we're inside a virtual machine, and this is mapped over to our actual map. So if I go to here and do code, if I make a new folder called test, and I'm inside a code in my Mac on my virtual machine, see? So it's linked. Go ahead and delete that, and it's gone. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an application, and I'm going to do a this. And usually when I have several tabs open in my terminal whenever I'm developing, and sometimes one is inside my virtual machine, the other is on my Mac in the corresponding folder. So here I'm in code, pwd, that's the path for my Mac. pwd, that's the path that's inside my virtual machine, Vagrant. So I took this straight from the Laravel documentation, create a project. I want you to do a Laravel project, and I want you to create it inside a directory called Homestead app. So I do this, and that's going to take some time to install this application. Okay, it looks like that installed nicely with our Laravel application. I kind of paused the video for a little bit. And now we get to see what all happened. So if we kind of go through this again, inside my code directory, I have a Homestead app. Inside my virtual machine, it created that site. Remembering this is kind of the three sections that we're going to kind of interact with. I told my Mac that when I go to Homestead app, homestead.app, to point to the local virtual machine. So let's try this out. Homestead app. Woohoo! We got a working Laravel application. So now you can go ahead and, if you wanted to, here we're on the virtual machine. So let's go over to the Mac. Go to CD Homestead. Let me show you the cool thing about that subl command. Subl space period, meaning this directory. And now I have this directory open. wanted to do something here. Let's say in routes. Let's do it in web, since that's one of our middlewares now. Route group. First time messing with this part in Laravel 5.2. So we're just going to say test, and I'm going to say it's going to be a function. And then it's going to return test. We got route. Unexpected, because I don't know how to close a PHP line. Test, we got route. So here we got a working application locally, and it's kind of cool that we have this own little domain here. So it's like you can really mess up this application and fix it until it's working and it looks good and polished, and then push it out to a production site. Isaac, what about MySQL? I'm so glad you asked. So I asked you to download SQL Pro. SQL Pro is one of those other applications, and I use it to interact with MySQL. So here I created a folder. You could create folders right here, and then you can add a connection right here. And on this connection, you do a standard connection, Homestead. The host is going to be 127.0.0.1. The username is Homestead. The password is secret. I'm going to leave the database blank, and I'll tell you why later. And then the port is 33060. Save changes. And be sure you save changes, because if you hit connect right away and you got a little trigger happy on me, you're going to have to input all these settings again. So save changes first, then hit connect. And it was unable to access using 127.0.0.1. Yes. Homestead. So username. Secret is the password. Save changes. Connect. Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe I had the wrong password. So here you can see that I have the Homestead domain. Okay. So I'm going to go over to our virtual machine. I'm still SSH'd into here. And the reason I'm going here is because inside of the Vagrant SSH, this is where you're going to run your artisan commands inside the Vagrant SSH. Most particularly the MySQL part, because the MySQL is, that's where you're going to run your migrations. And then this is going to be the other thing right here, this .env. Notice that it already has the database. That's kind of like default Homestead. So that's why I like to keep it that. Later, remember I told you don't put a database name there? Because if you put a database name there, then you would only be able to connect to that database. And the reason I left it open like that is so that way we can easily add databases for other Laravel applications. So here, this is kind of the database username. And in our second Laravel app, you're going to just change that database right there. So let's just run PHP artisan migrate, and we already have this user stuff that Laravel gives us, and it ran a migration. Let's check our SQL Pro, refresh, and there's our migrations. No content yet, but you can see the structure. Pretty cool. So we got a working application here. You might want to ask me, hey, so let's say I'm working with this application and now I need to spin up another one. Well, let me show you how to do that. So let's just cd, actually just type in the subl command, and we'll just go straight to the home directory. That's going to be Homestead, and I hit tab 2 times because I forgot if this was capital or not. Open up that YAML file. Open up that YAML file. I'm going to copy this map and then 2. And I'm going to add another map into, and notice you have to be real careful with the indentation on these YAML files. Getting started. And here I'm going to just say .dev, so that way you can see it really doesn't matter here what you call this. You just want to make sure it's not like .com or .org. .com or any of those will work, but remember, they're only going to work on your local environment. So it can get confusing whenever you're trying to actually go to the real .com. So I would leave this as a TLD that doesn't exist or that you can't actually purchase. So .dev is one of those, or .app. But this one I'm going to call .dev. Actually, you know what? I already have a local one called .dev, so we'll just say second project.dev. So I made a change to the YAML file. I made a change to what should be on the server. So I don't expect for my server to pick this change right away. So I'm going here to my virtual machine. Remember, I was SSH. I'm going to exit. And I have to do what's called Vagrant provision. I want it to pick up this new change. Okay, so now it should have that new change. The next thing I want to do is subl/etc/host. And I'm going to add a new domain. I called it secondproject.dev. Put it right there, secondproject.dev. Of course, I'm going to have to have my username and password, which that's it. Then I'm going to go to cd code, actually tilde code, that's where my applications are at. I have homestead.app. I'm going to copy over this, nope, it's no longer that. It's going to be, let's see, secondproject.dev. So now that's already created. Woohoo, I have a second project.dev. Laravel. There's my first one, Homestead app. Second project.dev. So it really doesn't matter what you call these this last part right here. The only thing too that I would take note is when you go in here, second project.dev, and I'm on my Mac right now, yes, subo command. Let's say you wanted to tie this to the database. Well, it needs a separate database than the one called Homestead. So with SQL Pro, I'm just going to click this and hit Add Database. I always make sure it's UTF-8, and this is second project underscore DB or whatever you're going to call it. Then you go here in your Laravel application. Second project underscore DB, and it has the same username and password. That's why I left that alone, so we can manage that. That's easy. So, moment of truth. We have to make sure we can run a migration for this to work. And we're going to do that within our Homestead directory. We're going to Vagrant SSH. CD code. There's my project, second project. Okay, and then I'm going to do PHP artisan migrate. Woohoo! This is so sweet. I got 2 functioning, working local apps on Homestead, on Laravel Homestead. You guys try this out. Be sure to pause, fast forward, I mean not fast forward the video, but rewind the video and look through if you get stuck. Leave me some comments down in the YouTube. And then let me know if there's anything I missed, or maybe there's something else you might want to see. The reason I'm doing this video is because someone asked for it in the comments. There are some other comments that people asked for, and I'm trying to push these out as fast as I can to answer some of those other questions, because I think there's some good questions that people need to know about or how to do. So I got some more videos coming down the pipeline here on YouTube. Don't forget, go over to gettingstarted.tv and get your free video on how to power your front-end workflow with Bootstrap, Sass, and Bower. Thank you, guys.